Welcome, everybody. We have a 5-minute break between chi and overtones and the spiritual sky, which is what we're doing now, transcendent self. And it's never quite enough, right? I'm just a few seconds off by the time I'm chatting to everybody. We've been talking about our teas and our chocolate. We had featured this milk oolong today. So please join us earlier if you can. It's a very chatty session, and we had some lovely coincidences that showed up when we have these chats. It's funny how everybody has their little bit and pieces that they bring to the table. Anyways, just absolutely wonderful to be with you all. It's amazing what a nice cup of tea and a nice piece of chocolate can do to lift our spirits and just help us kind of just navigate our way through these trying times. I think trying would be a good word to use. Challenging could be a word. Distracting, disruptive, but also expansive as well. Funnily enough, in its own ways, we're finding that there's little gifts along the way with this virus that are kind of bringing awareness to us and certain things that we have as human beings. Probably our greatest asset as a human being is ability to adapt and to be creative and to find solutions. And I think the best of that is our ability to be together and to love one another. And that's what these meditations are about, just being together and loving one another. And I think that perhaps is the most healing thing we can do for each other. There just seems to be that other. It's so interesting, just a bit outside of the scope of this meditation, but certainly in some of the work and classes that I do, this idea that that John Roger always had the other, even though the path of soul transcendence and spirituality in many ways is an individual path, right? It's just us in some way. There's always the other, right? Love your neighbor as yourself. There's always that reaching out to that other. And in John Roger, who's the founder of all of this, who we'll hear from in a moment, there was always the other was there. And so interesting. You know, we're always reaching out to the other person and having that loving consciousness. And that's what we want to keep in mind. And sometimes can be difficult navigating in the world, but when we come together in a gathering like this, it should be really easy. We can just put aside all of our protections and our barriers and just really be open and really absorb ourselves in the moment, in this time that we have together. But for now, let's just get into the energy of this. I've been vamping a little bit, waiting for some of you to arrive, and welcome again. And so we just ask for the highest and purest light from the highest and purest source to surround and fill each one of us and the space we're in for the highest good. And we ask for this light to clean the environment around us, clean and purify, balance the environment around us and inside of us as well, the inner environment. As if there's anything we're holding on to, it's anything that we picked up from the environment, from someone else, maybe someone was rude to us and we're just kind of holding on to it inside. We're bothered by something. We just ask for the light to release, transmute, dissolve, and take all of that back into the nothingness from which it came, through grace for our highest good. So now we have the light in and around us. Let's now listen to 2 excerpts from John Roger, which I love to play because they kind of are different. Even though it's the same excerpt, I hear them differently each time. So here's John, about a minute each. Here's John Roger.
The divine presence is exactly that thing that is present everywhere. And I could take you to a radical point of view and tell you that there really is no soul. There really is only this presence that is omnipotent, omnipresent at all times. But we talk about the soul as that individualized energy to give you a sense of well-being so that you can wave your dilemma away as you rise up in consciousness to find out you are what you have always been, and you are the one you've been looking for. If you're not pleasing yourself by being who you are, I got some sad news for you. That's tough, because that's all there is. If you haven't found that place yet inside of you that is full and brilliant, that's tough, because that's all there is. But when you get there, that's enough, because that's all there is. That's all there is for everybody on all the levels of consciousness. The bright, brilliant radiance of our beingness.
The bright, brilliant radiance of our beingness. Let's love you to close your eyes if you can. If you're driving, of course, do not close your eyes. And just imagine this bright, brilliant being that you are. It can sometimes sound pretty self-absorbed and egotistical to say that I am a bright, brilliant, divine being. And it is if one is saying it from an ego point of view. But if one is being that, there's really no ego involved. And we go back to what John Rogers said in the first excerpt. What we are to become, we already are. And that what we are seeking, we are that. Which is all pretty mind-blowing. And I think that's the idea, to be mind-blowing. The mind really has no place in that kind of awareness. The mind wants to separate and categorize, split. And that doesn't belong to the field of energy we're talking about when we talk about the spiritual sky. Now, if you are going to claim that you are the spiritual sky, which is what we're doing in this meditation, then we need to get a little bit bigger than our physical bodies. Perhaps expand into the space of the room. Now, if you have a problem or any situation, just find out where it's located in your body. Maybe a place of irritation. Perhaps you're dealing with a financial issue, a relationship issue, a health issue, a challenge, a situation. Just find out where it's located in your body. And from a body point of view, it probably is taking up or seems to be taking up quite a bit of space. But if you let your body be the room that you're in and expand your awareness out so that your body is actually the room, that problem that was taking up a lot of space in your physical body is now still taking up space, but not as significant in the space that is the room. And if you expand a little further, perhaps to the size of the city that you're in. It's not a little further, that's quite a bit further, I know, but expand into the city, your awareness. So you are the city of London, or you're the city of Los Angeles, or Buenos Aires. Whatever city you're in, you are that space. then that problem that you had is really small at this point. And if you expand into the country, it gets a little even more insignificant. And as you expand into become the planet Earth, your awareness is the Earth, that awareness field. Then your problem is, at this point, almost like an atom, just important, but not really running things. Now we could even go beyond this earth and perhaps become as big as the galaxy. Now we're told in this universe there's billions of galaxies. So what if that sky was to continue and that we are the universe? That problem of yours would not even be worth mentioning, given the scale of the universe and everything that's happening on it. So as you come back, not too rapidly, just comfortably back into your body, just see if you can locate that problem anymore. You may find, as I just did, that it's kind of disappeared. It's insignificant. And you can maybe recreate it. And if you do, you can just expand out again into the room, into your city, into your country, into the earth, and a little bit around the earth. You know, the astronauts that traveled into space pretty much all say the same thing. They're just awed by the beauty. And they all have this urging, this visceral urging to want to do something to help the planet. And that from that perspective, in space, looking at the earth, there's that feeling of oneness. There's actually a name for that perspective that the astronauts have, which escapes me at this moment. Perhaps I'll look it up and bring it back next week. But for now, just know that there is this other perspective that we're finding here as we look down on Earth and realize we are one. That really we don't exist separate from anyone else. This is what today's meditation is about, this oneness. This expansiveness. And perhaps already you can feel yourself relaxing, because when we expand, we need to move into a more spiritual quality. When we contract, we move into a more earthly quality. Kind of more negative, more limited perspective. John Roger would say quite often, in the midst of contraction, expand. So if there's any contracted points of view or perspectives you have. In the midst of that, expand. And you can expand in the way that we've talked about. I'm sure there's many ways to expand. But one way is just to go beyond your body, into the room, take up the space in the room with your consciousness. And then, as you feel comfortable, go beyond that. John Roger tells us that the true master realizes the opportunity of oneness with God in every experience, in every human being, and in every event. The true master. And each one of us is that master. What we are to become, we already are. And if we look at some kind of ultimate reality as us really having that consciousness of this true master who realizes the opportunity of oneness with God in every experience, in every human being, and in every event. I'm reminded of probably one of my favorite stories. The word master kind of brought it up, of a Taoist master. A Taoist being T-A-O, or the Tao, or the really pronounced the Tao, as if it was a D. During a time of great drought, a Taoist master was asked by members of a village if he could help bring rain to their dry fields. The villagers confessed trying many other approaches before reaching out to him, but with no success. The master agreed to come and asked for a small hut with a garden that he could tend. For 3 days, he tended the garden, performing no special rituals or asking anything further from the villagers. On the 4th day, rain began to fall on the parched earth. When asked how he had achieved such a miracle, the master answered that he was not responsible for the rain. However, he explained, when he came to the village, he had sensed disharmony within himself. Each day, as he tended the garden, he returned a little more to himself. When he came into balance, the rain came naturally. There's a lovely quote from a spiritual teacher called Jeff Foster, who says, "Nothing can distract you from meditation when everything becomes a part of meditation." Nothing can distract you from meditation when everything becomes a part of your meditation. This is meditation without a path, without a goal, without a script. It is meeting everything within you as a good friend. John Roger tells us that everyone in every language, of every race, is crying out for the oneness of beingness that is called God. It has also been called Christ and Buddha and light and many other things. It isn't necessary to get hung up on the words because it's all one. And when people know this oneness, the glory of this world will manifest. And when people know this oneness, the glory of this world will manifest. When people know this oneness. So that's what we're doing here is just getting to know this oneness and just distinguishing it and feeling, for want of a better word, feeling or knowing the difference between a oneness of consciousness and a two-ness, a split in consciousness. Again, John Roger, misery is separation and the feeling of being separated. You know, the Buddha spoke about suffering, that life is suffering. So we could add the word suffering here. John Roger uses the word misery, but we could say that suffering is separation and the feeling of being separated. Back to JR, he says, joy is the oneness of all. To reach the oneness, you own all aspects of living. You own the mistakes, the glory, the deceit, and the integrity. When you own it all, there is nothing you are not. You become one with God, which is all. Joy is the oneness of all. To reach the oneness, you own all aspects of living. You own the mistakes, the glory, the deceit, and the integrity. When you own it all, there is nothing you are not. You become one with God, which is all. And I'll just sound the singing bowls just for a couple of minutes here. The idea of oneness, of course, is not new. The philosopher Plotinus was around 200 AD, who said, we are not separated from spirit. We are in it. He also said it is precisely because there is nothing within the one that all things are from it. So you can see that even with this almost philosophical point of view, see a very spiritual aspect to it. And he says this all, he called it more the all, this all is universal power of infinite extent and infinite in potency, a God so great that all its parts are infinite. Name any place and it is already there. And the musician Terry Riley said that music can also be a sensual pleasure like eating food or sex. But its highest vibration for me is that point of taking us to a real understanding of something in our nature, which we can very rarely get at. It is a spiritual state of oneness. So see if you can, again, just expand. And move into an even deeper state now of oneness, where there's absolutely no separation. If we go back to Plotinus, he says that in this state of absorbed contemplation, there is no longer any question of holding an object in view. The vision is such that seeing and seen are one. Object and act of vision have become identical. We're so in this oneness that we don't separate ourselves from it. There's no longer two, but one. A merger into who we truly are. John Rogers says that I can always tell someone who lives in integrity. I can always tell if someone lives in integrity because there is a oneness with them all the time. They don't have to remember or be concerned about what they say or do, because the action will always be the right one. I'm not saying that they will be perfect, but their presentation of themselves will always be perfectly timed and perfectly accomplished. There will be a rightness about them. So again, if you find yourself contracting in any thought or awareness, just expand past your body into the room. Become the room, beyond the room perhaps, into the city, into the country. Perhaps you just expand even past that and take that perspective of the astronaut, looking upon the earth, seeing the wholeness and the oneness. And in this meditation, even going beyond that, you are what is being seen. There is no separation. There's not a seer and that which is seen. It merges into one. John Roger tells us each one of us wants to move back into that oneness. The wholeness we sometimes refer to as holiness. We become holy and sacred when all levels of our beingness are working in cooperation with one another. The parts of our consciousness that function in this world and the soul, the essence of who we really are. We become holy and sacred when all levels of our beingness are working in cooperation with one another. That it's possible to reach a state of bliss, oneness, and joy that is beyond thought and beyond words. In those moments, you see the perfection and beauty of the divine plan for each person, as well as for all humankind. In those moments, you know there is no suffering and all is perfect. You can begin to return to the room very, very slowly and gently. Just by gently wiggling your fingers and toes, perhaps. Allowing yourself to take a slightly deeper breath. And slowly open your eyes, return to the world. Feel free to invite your family and friends, anyone you'd like to have along, just to share in this energy field. And we'll see you and thank you. So, be well, everyone. I just want to thank Stella for hosting. We've been here a couple of hours, over a couple of hours actually, with the tea and overtones. So thank Stella for hosting, and Maria Jose Marignon for translating for us. So great thanks to her. And of course, our tech team. We have 3 of them behind the boards here. So this is quite the professional presentation. We have Paul Wilcox, Chris, and Jake. Anyway, thank you all for joining us, and what a pleasure. We hope to see you next week. Be well. God bless everyone. Thank you.